credibility and instant authority. Okay, people automatically say, oh, that person must know what they're talking about because they're the one that's on stage. Now, as a speaker, when you get off stage, whatever your topic is that you speak about, people will approach you and they will want to learn what you're doing. How did you do that? Can you show me? Can you teach me? Can you mentor me? Well, guess what that leads really well to? Coaching. Right? It's a natural fit if you are a speaker to be able to offer coaching because people will approach you and want to know how you're able to do what you're doing and how you're able to build those skills, and they'll want to learn from you. So if you have a coaching program, because I know what a lot of people do, they end up kind of, and I know there's some of you who are already speakers here in the room, any of my speakers in the room, have you ever ended up giving people like some free advice or mentoring people? Right? Some of you are shaking your head, right? Because that happens. But what happens when you give people free advice and you're mentoring them? They don't listen to you, right? Because they don't necessarily they're not as invested in the advice that you're sharing, right? So that's why it works really well to go into coaching, because now you can say, I would absolutely love to share with you the things that I'm doing, but my time is valuable. Every one of you in this room, your time is valuable. So you need to be making something for the time you're investing in someone. And usually when they're actually investing on that information and that education and that growth, they're more likely to actually listen to you. So the coaching is a great segue from the speaking. Then the author part, or writing a book, which later today I'm actually going to share some more information, really kind of dive into the whole book side, whether it's a published book or ebook and how you can leverage all of that. But it's another way to add some credibility to yourself as a speaker or a coach. Now, if you're a coach, right, if you're starting out on the coach side, as a coach, you're going to start building up coaching clientele. As you're building up coaching clientele, right, and you're really focusing on generating those results for your clients, it becomes a natural fit for then you to get on stage at some point, because now what you're doing is you're able to build your credibility up to the next level, right? And it helps you kind of expose your coaching brand and what you coach on to a bigger audience more quickly than just using traditional forms of advertising, right? So it's a great way to really help build your coaching business. So that's why I say all three of them are really going to end up coming together. And regardless if you're all three of those or not right now, you will be at some point, because they're all going to help build on each other and help you become a more successful speaker, a more successful coach, even an author to an extent. The bigger your audience is, the easier it is to start selling more books. So all three of those are going to go together. Now, when it comes to speaking, there's really three different types of speakers out there, okay? Now, of those three different types of speakers, there are keynote speakers, there are platform speakers, and there are more of content speakers. Okay, so everyone write that down. Keynote speakers, platform speakers, content speakers. Now, your keynote speaker, a lot of people know what a keynote speaker is. A keynote speaker is somebody that gets paid to go in, speak for about an hour and a half to 2 hours, deliver some information. Sometimes doesn't deliver information, but the reality is your keynote speaker is usually a celebrity. Your keynote speaker is the one that gets people to come to the event, that gets people to buy tickets to the event, because people want to hear from that celebrity, that very well-known brand, right? That would be Richard Branson, right? If Richard Branson is speaking at an event, that's who they're advertising, that's who they're promoting, and that's who people are buying tickets to come see. It's Richard Branson, right? Then there might be other speakers at the event, but you don't really hear much about who those other speakers are. Maybe on the flyer, they're like smaller pictures on the bottom, but everything you hear about is Richard Branson, because he is the keynote speaker for that event, and that's who people are coming to listen to. Now, from my experience, both in marketing and advertising and both in the events business, it's not the most profitable way as an individual to say, I want to be a keynote speaker, because you don't really make money as a keynote speaker until you're a huge, big name brand celebrity, right? You might make a few thousand euros, dollars, pounds, right, depending on where you are in the world. But you don't make Richard Branson hundreds of thousands until you're a Richard Branson, right? Because you have to be the draw for the event. So usually I tell people being a keynote speaker generally isn't the best way to start monetizing a speaking career as quickly as possible. And that's what I like to share with people. I'm not saying you're never going to be a keynote speaker, but in the beginning, it's not the best way to start monetizing things and making money as quickly as possible, okay? Now the third one that I mentioned is a content speaker. So a content speaker is usually someone that they will have come to an event that shares a lot of information. Now, for those of you that have been at events, you've all experienced this before, right? The big celebrity that draws you into the event. Then there will be other speakers who are actually sharing a lot of information. Sometimes they're only 30 minutes to an hour, right? And they share a lot of great content, but maybe nobody knows who they are. So again, they get paid to come do that, but they don't really make a lot of money. Where most of the money is made for speakers is when you become a platform sales speaker. Now, a platform sales speaker is the person that's going to get on stage and after an hour and a half or 2 hours is going to sell a different product or specialty class or sell something at the end of speaking. Usually at a big event, they're going to sell something that is somewhere priced, usually, if we're talking euros, maybe 2,000 to 5,000 euros. That's usually where the pricing would fall. And after an hour and a half to 2 hours, that's what they're going to sell. Their 5,000 euro program at the end of speaking. And you've all probably have seen something like that. That's usually where it's the most profitable type of speaker to start out as. Because what you're doing is the better you are at selling, the more you can sell, the more money that you actually make. Right? Where it's very hard when you're starting out as a speaker to be a keynote speaker because nobody knows who you are. Right? And you might have the best story, the most amazing information to share, but nobody knows you yet. Right? Has everyone heard of Nick Vujicic? He's the one with no arms and no legs.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, even if you don't know his name, when I say no arms, no legs, you're like, oh yeah, I know who that is. Now, how many of you have seen him speak before? A few of you, okay. He is an amazing speaker, and he has an amazing story. And the reality is, though, he didn't start out there. He started taking speaking engagements around Australia for $100, right? So even as the huge keynote speaker that he is now, where he can travel around the world and really command huge speaking fees, it took him years of starting at 100 Aussie dollars per speaking engagement, and then he went up to 250, and then 500, and it took him a very long time for people to hear his story and hear his message and hear how inspirational he could be. And he has a very, very inspirational story, right? So that's why I'm saying even someone like that didn't start out saying, here's my great story and I'm going to bring a bunch of people and make a bunch of money. Or when you're selling a product or a program, you can start selling it for thousands of dollars, and it's all about having a topic that people are interested in. Okay, now this is the tricky part of having a topic that people actually want to learn about. Now, this is where I'm going to give everyone a little bit of tough love. Is that okay? Okay, this is where I'm not going to necessarily tell you what you want to hear. I'm going to tell you what you need to hear. Okay? This is the point where JT might yell at you a little bit, but I'm not going to actually yell at anyone. but this is the reality. A lot of times we have an idea, and we become very, very passionate about our own idea. And we are really, really excited about our idea, and we think, because we're so excited about our idea, that everyone else is going to be really excited and love our idea as well. That's not always the case. Okay? Sometimes the topic we want to speak about or coach on is a little bit too niche, a little bit too small, and the audience we're trying to target isn't necessarily large enough to really make a big enough impact. So this is what I want all of you to think about a little bit. If we were, I'm going to use an analogy, if we were all fishermen and fisherwomen, okay, and we're going out on the fishing boat, we could literally go out with a fishing pole, right, and we could cast the pole and we each could try to catch one fish. Or we could cast a net, right, like some different fishermen do, or like if we were crab fishermen, we would drop crab pots, because we're trying to get multiple fish or multiple crabs at one time. Then the reality is sometimes it's a fish we're not supposed to catch, so we've got to throw it back. Sometimes the crab's not big enough yet, so we have to throw it back. But now we have a larger audience or group of fish to be able to pull from, instead of trying to fish for that one special fish that we know is going to be our audience. Okay? So you need to start thinking a little bit about, is my topic broad enough to where multiple people are going to be interested in, or am I trying to talk too specifically to one person or one very, very small group? Okay? I'll give you an example. One of the ladies that I was coaching at one point, she's a mom, she has kids, and she realized that there was kind of a market in that mom that's having their first child. Okay? Now, I personally don't have any children. I have a dog that's kind of treated like a child and spoiled a little bit too much, and I'm more than willing to admit that. But I have a lot of friends that have children. I'm an aunt, so I have nieces, no nephews yet, but I have a bunch of nieces. But I do know from any of my friends and my sister, when you have your first child, right, there's a lot of like, I'm not 100% sure what to expect, right? And there is kind of that uncertainty. Now, here's the thing though, if I am trying to market only to women when they have their first child, that's a very, very small market. It's a very, very niche group of people. So why not just market to women with children, period? Okay? Now, that's still not all women, but now I'm opening up my market a little bit more, and maybe there's different solutions, different coaching, different products I could sell to women having their first child, women having their first child, to women who maybe have multiple children, right? Because what happens with your first child is very different than now you have 3 kids, and now you're balancing 3 different sports schedules and dance practice and school schedules, and there's a lot more, there's different things and different needs. So instead of just saying I'm going to focus on this really, really small market, I'm going to open up and I'm going to look at how can I potentially serve multiple markets by marketing to a larger group of people. You don't want to go too narrow at first. You also want to think about what your message is and who you're trying to speak to and help. I work with a lot of people that will say they want to give back, or they have like a certain charity they want to focus on, or very popular in different areas of the world, people that want to go in and speak to children in school, right? Children in school to help inspire them, or maybe children that are in the foster care system to be able to like inspire and motivate them that they can achieve whatever they want to. Those are all amazing messages, and those are all amazing causes. But it's very hard to make money in those areas, okay? So you also need to think about, when it comes to your message, you know when we're on the airplane and the safety video or the flight attendant is going through the safety motions, and they talk about the air masks, right? Like if the cabin pressure drops, the masks are gonna pop down from the ceiling. And they always tell you, you need to put on your mask before you assist the passengers around you. So I want you to think about this. I think it's great to have a charity, a cause, something that you want to give back to, but you have to make sure that you're taking care of yourself, your family, and building up a business that you can monetize before you start focusing on the charity side, right? I think it's phenomenal to get involved with different causes. JT is very, very involved with a lot of different children's charities around the world. He's sponsored part of a children's hospital in Singapore. He's rebuilt a children's hospital in South Africa. He's very involved with St. Jude's in the US. He gets very involved with different children's charities. I personally get very involved with different animal causes, and like I've been to a lot of different animal sanctuaries, and that's what I really get behind. But you got to take care of yourself and your business side first, so you have the time and the funds to be able to give back to the cause. Does that make sense to everyone? Because sometimes we're really trying to build a speaking platform to an audience that isn't going to pay us, right? So then we're putting a lot of time and energy and effort, and we're building something up, but we're not actually going to make any money to be able to take care of ourselves and then have the time to be able to give back. So you need to be thinking about that a little bit as well. Now, the other piece that I'm going to mention in this is that sometimes how we're positioning our topic, positioning what we want to talk about, positioning our coaching program, isn't positioned in a way where people are going to be interested in it, okay? One of the biggest things that people will always ask themselves is, what am I going to get out of this? What is the benefit for me? What is the result I'm going to walk away with? So you need to think of your positioning, of your topic you speak on, of your coaching program, of a product that you're selling, as what is the result I'm going to deliver to the audience, right? What is the people that listen to me speak, what are they going to get out of it? If you buy my coaching program, what are you going to get out of it? If you buy my product, what is the product about? What are you going to get out of it? If you have to explain something to somebody, you've already lost the audience. Okay, you want it to be very to the point and very self-explanatory. Now, I'm sure that you've all experienced going to a networking group at some point. I know some people love going to networking groups, some people hate it, right? It just depends on your personality. Some people love talking to a bunch of strangers they've never met before. Other people are like, I really don't want to do this, but I have to. I've got to meet new people. I've got to network with people. Now, how many of you have ever gone up to somebody, introduced yourself, and you start talking and you ask the person, oh, what do you do? Right? That happens, okay? And then 15 minutes later, they're still explaining to you what they do, right? And then you're standing there with what I call the smile and nod, because you're like, and you have no idea what they're saying, right? Because you stopped paying attention, and you started thinking about what am I going to cook for dinner tonight? What time do I have to pick up the kids? Wait, what time is it right now? Oh, did I remember to do that proposal earlier, right? You start going through your checklist in your head, and the other person's just talking away, explaining to you what they do, right? We've all experienced that at some point before, right? And in all fairness, we've probably been that person at some point before too, just rambling on and on about what we do. Now, it's the same thing. You don't want to have to explain to someone what your topic is you speak on, or how you coach. You want it to be very self-explanatory. So when somebody says, oh, what do you coach on? What do you do? You say something that makes sense, that people are like, oh, okay, I know what that is. When you have to explain something, you lose people's attention. Okay, they say that a goldfish has an attention span of 3 seconds. People have an attention span of about 8 seconds. Okay, so we're almost comparable to goldfish. It's a little scary, right? I think a lot of that is as we are exposed to different media and different messages, and like everywhere you look, there's things that can distract us. It becomes, our attention spans are becoming shorter and shorter and shorter, right? So you've got to think about what is that message that's going to make sense, that's going to kind of click with people and make an impact right away. And then you open up a dialogue about that. So you want to think, how can I attract people? How can I bring people in with a message that's really to the point and makes sense to people? And the other part is something that people will pay for. Okay, so kind of the last piece in this is you need to think about what is it that people would actually be willing to pay for. And sometimes you have to bring it to an actual, something that's tangible or measurable. And what I mean by that is sometimes people will tell me, I've heard before people say, I'm a happiness coach. Okay? It's very hard to get someone to want to pay for that because happiness is really all over the board. It's very not tangible. Everyone in this room, we would probably, if we took out a paper and wrote down what's our definition of happy, I would dare to bet that every single one of us would write something different down, right? And then I know from my own experience, you might set goals of if I could just get to here, then I'm going to be really happy and that's what I want. And sometimes you get there, but it's not what you thought it would be, right? So you have to think about too, what am I positioning that's kind of more of a result that people would be interested in? That people would be like, yes, that is worth paying for, right? I know I'm going to pay X amount of dollars for this coaching program, and at the end, I'm going to walk away with this. Right? When I first met JT, it was real estate. I knew I was paying for coaching, right? Because I was going to walk away with actual knowledge and expertise on how to do real estate investing and how to know if a deal was a good deal or a bad deal. That's a tangible. I know what I'm getting. I know what I'm paying for. I know what the expectation is. So you have to think about that a little bit too. Is this something people are willing to actually pay for? Right? Because if people aren't willing to pay for it, then again, you're putting a lot of your time into something, and your time is valuable. Right? Time is the one thing we can't make more of. Right? As hard as we try, as much as we will do different things, try and be healthy, right? We can't really recreate time. We can't get more time. Okay? So you don't want to be doing things that are going to be, for lack of a better way of putting it, wasting your time and not really giving you anything back for the time that you're putting into it. So you really want to think about that with your messaging. That also, if you think about all of those things, it will make it so much easier for you actually to market and position your messaging as well. The other thing that I will add to that is don't try and be the person that's going to coach or speak on 10 different topics as you're getting started. You want to focus on one area first and really become an authority or an expert in that area before you expand into different areas, okay? You absolutely can speak on different areas, coach on different areas, but you don't want to start there. You want to become that expert before you start branching out into the other things, okay? JT, for example, like I said, when I first met him, it was based on real estate, and that's what he did at first, was real estate. He had done over 500 real estate deals, predominantly in the Chicago area in the US, and he'd done all of them without his own money. Now, when I first met him, I was like, that's a lot of real estate deals, right? And I know it might sound like it's a little bit too good to be true, until at one point, when I started working with him, we were in Chicago, and I went to his house in Chicago, and he opens up a closet, okay? And at the time, he was doing a lot of foreclosure real estate in Chicago when he was building this. And he opens up the closet, and there are just tapes, okay? This closet is full of tapes because he recorded every single real estate closing he'd ever done. And so I saw with my own eyes hundreds and hundreds of tapes. Because at the time, it was kind of a protection thing, right? Because in foreclosure, usually, somebody's basically losing their home, right? Which either they could sell it to you, and a lot of times, either they could rent it back for someone, right? Even though I'm real estate, I hate talking about real estate because I'm not really the best with like the details and the logistics of everything. But he recorded everyone just in case anything ever came back, which a couple times people would try and say, oh, I didn't know what I was doing, or I didn't know this. And he would go to where he had the recording, where everything was basically recorded at the closing, where the person is asked, do you know what you're signing? Do you know what this means? And they're like, yes, I know what I'm doing, right? So he had recorded every single closing he'd ever done. And I saw this closet full of tapes. And I was like, wow, he really has done that many real estate deals. So at the time, he really was known for real estate. And then it wasn't until he started building up different businesses and getting involved in different businesses that then he started coaching on business. So then he started speaking on business, right? Because I said when you're coaching on a topic and then you speak on it, it really gives you that authority and credibility to then build more of a coaching clientele there. And it hasn't been until probably the last year and a half, where now he's speaking and coaching on how to become a speaker. Because now he's been a speaker for about 7.5, 8 years. Right? So you can actually absolutely build on the different areas you speak and coach on, but you need to make sure you kind of build one up and become a credibility authority in that area before you expand to the next one. Right, so for the past, like I said, year and a half, JT's we've been traveling around and really working on how to become a speaker. That's a lot of what he's been doing. And he's kind of come to a point in his career where he doesn't want to travel as much anymore. Every single year, we sit down in December, and he says, this year, I'm going to travel less. And for the 3.5 years I've been working with him, every single year he travels more. Okay? And it was one thing at first, because my first 2 years working with JT, I was more based in the office, helping to actually build out the marketing business and build out marketing teams in his different businesses. And then over the past 1.5 years now, I've been traveling with him almost full time. Not 100% of the time, but almost. And I will tell you, last year, we did a stint of 7 weeks without going home. That's a lot of travel, right? This year, I'm looking and I'm just like, I thought we were traveling less this year. And he's like, well, we're going to take time off. And I'm like, when? When is this time off coming, right? Because we travel all the time. And not that this has anything to do with speaking, only I will give you this little bit of advice. We travel with carry-on luggage only. Because the first time you lose your bag, when you're going somewhere and you need to speak, and you have to get on stage in tennis shoes and sweatpants, it doesn't go very well, right? Because just like we're talking about how to build your brand and how to build that credibility, how you dress is a huge part of that. I could be standing up here right now telling you all the exact same things, but if I was in my clothes that I flew on the airplane in, you wouldn't be listening to me, right? Because it's my sweatpants, my sneakers, a sweatshirt, because I want to be comfortable when I travel. So we do all of this in carry-on bag, which sometimes gets a little bit crazy at the amount that we're traveling. But he's really started to want to create more people that can speak, that can coach, so he doesn't have to do as much of it, right? We met, JT and I met Rajiv just over a year ago. I think it was just over a year ago. And now Rajiv doesn't travel everywhere with us, but Rajiv travels and speaks, right? So Rajiv is kind of one of those examples As with the example earlier, we had our first representation from Iceland at this past family reunion, where we had someone actually speaking on our stage from Iceland. So that's really where JT is now, wanting to really help create more speakers.